So Mike McCarthy, who would not have been my first choice, this was a year when there was an amazing candidates. Urban Meyer, the Whiz Kids, Lincoln Riley and Matt Rule, Josh McDaniels, Ron Rivera had been to a Super Bowl, and this feels like sort of Mike McCarthy, a really safe hire. Mike McCarthy fits Cleveland because they need his maturity and they need his stability and they need his guidance. That's not what Dallas needs. Dallas needs McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Matt Nagy. They need clever. They've got talent. They don't need stability. They're plenty stable. Dak provides the stability. They don't need necessarily guidance. They've won 2 divisions last 4 years. They don't need necessarily a grown-up in the room. Jason Garrett is a grown-up, sometimes too much of a grown-up. You know, he's clapping like the Little League dad after every strikeout. That's not what Dallas needs. Dallas needs some pow, some progressive, some clever, some really smart, some new, some fresh. That's not 56-year-old Mike McCarthy. You know, it's funny. Jerry Jones, one of his famous sayings is, he's never happy when he settles. Overpay, take a risk. Jerry Jones says, I'm never satisfied when I try to save money or when I settle. I always end up with a product I don't love. When I go for it, when I take a risk, when I overpay, that's when I have something that everybody else wants. Is Mike McCarthy really something everybody else wants? This feels like settling for a head coach. That's what it feels like. When I said Mike McCarthy, first thing you thought was that's safe. And by the way, you can be a good coach and not a great fit. I don't think he's a great fit. Let me throw this at you. Mike McCarthy has never in 13 years as a head coach been top 10 in rushing attempts. What are the Cowboys? A run-blocking O-line and Zeke. That's not in his DNA. Every coach has a DNA. Gruden loves power running. Kyle Shanahan and his dad, Mike Shanahan, love to run the football. Pete Carroll, USC and Seattle, build a running game. It doesn't matter. Pete Carroll teams are physical. That's his DNA. Sean Payton tends to be clever. Spread it out. Andy Reid develops quarterbacks and wide receivers. Every coach has a DNA. Mike McCarthy's DNA isn't developing a great running game. In the last 3 years, I'm going to read you this stat. In the last 3 years in Green Bay, Mike McCarthy was 29th, 25th, and last in rushing percentage. That was with above-average offensive lines and Aaron Rodgers being injured. It's not in his DNA. He doesn't build running games. 13 years in Green Bay, he didn't do it. And I think he's a good coach, but Jerry Jones has made an empire on taking risk. When he bought the Dallas Cowboys, he didn't have the cash for it. He put that thing on a credit card and had to scramble for 4 years. When he built the stadium, when he built his practice facility, when he hired Jimmy Johnson and fired Tom Landry, he's an oil maverick. If you look at Jerry Jones' entire career, it is taking big risks. All these young progressive candidates. He interviewed 2 guys, Marvin Lewis and Mike McCarthy. And McCarthy stayed the night at his house. Jerry made pancakes in the morning or something. It just doesn't feel like in a year with a bunch of very clever candidates. There's a lot of really clever candidates out there. Your Urban Meyer, your Lincoln Riley, your Matt Rule, your Josh McDaniels. I just don't think the DNA matches here. I don't think it matches. Again, he's safe. He's an adult. But that was Jason Garrett. Wasn't that the knock on Jason Garrett? He's safe. He's an adult. There's never chaos with Jason Garrett. He's safe. You know that you have a grown-up in the room. You know the players like him. Not a lot of controversy. Between Dak and Jason Garrett, I got all the maturity I need. What I need is some sizzle, some risks, some push the envelope. Josh McDaniels, Urban Meyer. Give me a little swag. Give me a little attitude. Give me a little. I don't know. I don't see it. Don't like it. I don't think it's a disaster. I just think it's more of what I've seen. And if you're going to pay Dak Prescott $35 million, you got to stretch that quarterback dollar. Like Matt Nagy is with Trubisky. You got to stretch. You got to stretch that dollar. You got to get every penny out of $35 million because Dak's not really a $35 million quarterback talent. Not Russell Wilson. He's not Carson Wentz. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Lamar Jackson. Is he Jimmy Garoppolo? They paid Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco $28 million, which is way less than Dak will get. And what was the first thing they did? They got a right tackle. Then they got a tight end. Then they get Emmanuel Sanders. They know that if you pay the quarterback that kind of money, you got to get him assistance. Well, Dallas doesn't have a lot of room once they pay Dak. They're not going to be able to afford much. So you have to get that assistance from the coaching because you can't, with your offensive line and Amari and Zeke, there's no money left to elevate Dak. Like your money, you are at the cap. So now you got to get the clever and the elevation from the coach. And I don't think Mike McCarthy's a bad coach. I think he's a fine coach. But for the record, Green Bay now is 13-3 without him. I always say, don't judge a coach just by what he does when he arrives. What happens to the place when he leaves? When Harbaugh left San Francisco, man overboard. You go look at places. Nothing against Mike McCarthy, but he left Green Bay. They look happier and are hosting playoff games. Just saying. All right, let me shift to this. I'll have more on Mike McCarthy with Jay Glazer coming up. Major scoopage today. Mike McCarthy, coach. Glazer broke the story. So I watched New England all year, and we kept saying is, listen, just that nobody can get open. I watched Minnesota, Adam Thielen's open. I watched Seattle, DK Metcalf's open. I watch the Saints and Michael Thomas can be open. And I watch Kansas City and Tyreek Hill can be open. And I watch Baltimore and all their receivers are open. And I watch Houston and D-Hop is open. And I watch the New England Patriots and nobody's open. There's nobody open. They don't have a tight end. It's rookie wide receivers and Julian Edelman, who's a bag of wrenches right now. The guy's all banged up. But let me just say this. Look around the NFL right now. I love Brady. Look around the NFL right now. Tom Brady is 42, not very athletic. They are playing in New England at a quarterback athletic deficit. And Bill Belichick has made a career on being proactive, not reactive. Everybody keeps telling me Brady's going to leave. And everybody keeps telling me Josh McDaniels is going to leave. Are we sure Belichick wants to stick around? Belichick wanted to move off Brady 2 years ago and was told by the owner he couldn't. And I saw a story today where Robert Kraft says he's praying that Tom Brady resigns. What do we know about Belichick? Belichick is always ahead of the curve. And he watches Mahomes, and he watches Josh Allen, and he watches Lamar, and he watches Deshaun Watson, and he watches Garoppolo, and he watches all these guys do cool things. And he's got Brady, who I love, but he's 42 and doesn't make plays once it breaks down, and he looks a little older. We all got Josh McDaniels leaving, and we all have Brady leaving. Has anybody thought about Bill Belichick saying, maybe it's my time? Giants don't have a coach yet. He's got history there. He didn't want to coach for the Jets. I think he coached for the Giants and the Mara family. Great respect there. But it's funny. We know that if Tom Brady was on the market, 75% of the teams wouldn't go after him. And we know if Josh McDaniels was on the market, 70% of the teams wouldn't go after him. If Bill Belichick's on the market, how many teams wouldn't go after him? 4? Maybe. So, I look at this situation, and I don't think Belichick, the GM, has always helped Brady, the quarterback, right? Belichick's a great coach. I don't think it's a general manager. They've drafted particularly well. One Pro Bowler at tight end, wide receiver, and running back in his reign. Gronk. That's it. So I'm not saying Belichick's not without blame here, but you look around at the trend of the NFL. And it's between the collective bargaining, which means offensive linemen don't practice as much, and the college game going to spread offenses. Offensive lines aren't very good in this league. It is not an either-or. You got to have a quarterback that moves. Brady doesn't, and Belichick's always been at the head of the curve his entire career. Now he's kind of reacting to everybody else. So I keep hearing about everybody leaving New England. If Bob Kraft forces him to re-sign a 42-year-old, about to be 43-year-old Tom Brady, are we sure Belichick's sticking around? We know Belichick has left before. He was a Jets coach for an hour and said, no, thank you. I think Belichick may have a little bit more leverage than everybody thinks here. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.